Business owners, public servants, fellow corporate hippies. How's your elevator pitch? What do you do when somebody says, "So, what do you do?" Do you fumble and you ramble and you faffle around and eventually kind of get something out before you go, "Oh man, that should have been better"? Well, you're in luck. This month, my Speak Easy, which is an online practice session for anybody who wants to work on their speaking, this month we're focusing on elevator pitches. So, my Speak Easy practice session is exactly what it says on the box. It's a space where we make speaking easy, and this month you can practice your elevator pitch. So, come along. It's a consequence free environment full of other people just like you who want to have their elevator pitch sound awesome, not sound like they're a dick, and make them feel good, open up new conversations. The details are in the show notes. Thursday, the 22nd of May, 12:30 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. And it's just a beautiful opportunity for you to practice, for you perhaps to try on a couple of different elevator pitches and get some feedback, like literally get some feedback. So I look forward to seeing you on the 23rd of May. Welcome to another episode of Speaking with Confidence. I'm Kat Matson, and in this podcast series, I coach humble leaders just like you how to speak with authority, confidence, authenticity, and with impact so you can make the contributions to the conversations that matter to you. Welcome to another episode. It's awesome to have you here. And today we're talking about how to be heard in meetings. Yeah, how to be heard in meetings. Now, this conversation is not going to be a conversation about why people talk over us, why people interrupt us, why people sometimes just don't understand that it's useful to give everybody at the table the opportunity to speak. But I know that we've felt it, right? We have all sat in meetings where there is someone, often quite a few people, who are louder than us, more confident than us, have way more, many words than us. And it can be hard to be heard. It can be hard to interject and make our point. It can be hard, particularly too, because we feel like we're being rude if we interrupt. We feel like we don't want to treat the people in our meetings the same way that they're treating us, even though sometimes the behaviour is not it. So if you've ever been spoken over, if you find it difficult to keep talking even when you're being interrupted, who doesn't? Or if you're just not sure how to cut through, well, this episode's for you, so keep listening. The first thing that I want to say is it's normal and it's not you. The other thing that I want to say as those words came out of my mouth was, even though it can seem like it's rude, arrogant, or ignorant on other people's parts, I honestly think that for some people, it's just how they process the world. Some of us, myself included, we process our thoughts by saying them out loud. And so I do honestly believe that there are many people who in meetings will keep talking, not because they're trying to suck the air out of the room, which is what it can feel like, but because they're trying to make sense of what it is that they're saying. Now, are there other people who love the sound of their own voice, think that they're God's gift and that their opinions are the only ones that matter? Sure, I've worked with some of them as well. And I like to give people the benefit of the doubt, particularly when I'm trying to cut through myself, because if I'm going in on the defensive, or actually if I'm going in on the attack, then that doesn't help me be heard, because it shifts my tone of voice, it shifts how I show up. And if I'm trying to be heard by someone who thinks they're awesome, going on the attack is actually not going to help me achieve my outcome. So I guess having said all of that, my first tip for today is set your ego at the door. This isn't about you being right. This isn't about you having your equal time. This is about, in this context, in this environment, what is my best contribution? How can I facilitate these people around me so that I can be heard? So one of the ways that we can do that is with what I call agreement frames. Now, when I say what I call agreement frames have been around, I don't know, since we've started talking about communication techniques. And it's phrases like, I understand, and, or I can see your point, and, or, yeah, I can appreciate that that's how it is for you, and. So what I'm doing here is I'm acknowledging the other person's perspective, point of view, opinion, whatever it is, and then I'm building on it rather than rejecting it with an and. And what I mean by I'm building on it with an and rather than rejecting it, I'm not using the word but. Now I just want to step back from that for a minute. When we have struggled to be heard in a meeting, when we feel like somebody else is dominating the time, taking everything over, and we can't get a word in edgewise, it can be very tempting to go in on the defensive or on the attack and butt them. Yes, Bob, I understand what you're saying, but that's not what I believe. As soon as we do that, we end up in a clash. And it's really hard to make yourself heard, particularly when you're already struggling to be heard because perhaps you were quieter. Perhaps you struggle to speak up anyway. Perhaps you're not at the same rank in the organisation, and so there's a bit of structural politics going on. When all of that power play is going on, what you don't want is to go in on the attack. So these agreement frames allow you to acknowledge the other person's perspective and then build on it by presenting yours. If you then get interrupted, you can either wait and let them roll out and then simply pull it back to you by saying, and as I was saying, now depending on how many other people are in the room with you, that will generally work because the other people in the room will go, oh yeah, Kat, what were you saying again? And they will, like, it's a bit like online trolls. You know, other people will come in to help you have your voice and have your say. Sometimes you will need to persist with this. Sometimes you might need to say, yes, thank you. And as I was saying, and then you continue on. I also find that in these kind of dynamics, you can continue to use the agreement frames. Yes, I appreciate that. And as I was saying, you know, so you're acknowledging and you're building and you're letting them subtly know that you interrupted and you're coming it back to you. Like you just keep building and being in dialogue without being in argument. Now, I've already mentioned letting go of the need to be right. Sometimes, I'm going to say it this way, let go of the need to be right and let go of the need to get credit. Ooh, now, this is a tough one. I work with a lot of women. I work with guys too, and I work with a lot of women. And we have all experienced, in fact, men have experienced this too. We have all experienced the dynamic where we will say something, we will contribute something to a conversation. It feels like it gets brushed over, ignored, not heard. And then a few minutes later, somebody else will say exactly the same thing, and then they'll get the acknowledgement. I say that's okay. It sucks in the moment. There is no doubt about it, particularly if your ego is playing the game instead of your outcome. Now, the reason this happens, it is neurological and psychological, particularly if you're presenting a new idea or if you're presenting something that wasn't part of the narrative. It actually takes time for the other minds in the room to process it. The other thing that happens is we are trained in social environments that certain ideas, certain decisions come from certain people in the room. This is not a right or wrong thing. This is human psychological behavior. So when you say something, when you present a new idea, when you express an opinion that at first seems to be ignored but then gets picked up later on, it means you've actually been really successful in influencing the discussion. You've been really successful in influencing the discussion. Now, depending on the vibe in the room, you can then claim credit for that. You go, I know, is it that's what I've been saying? Or you can just build on it. I had to learn the hard way, in other words, by bitter experience, that sometimes I needed to prioritize the outcome over the credit. I needed to prioritize the outcome over the credit. Now, here's the thing. If you're sitting here listening to me going, that's BS, Kat, there's no way I'm letting those people get the credit for my good ideas. Influence happens over time. And if you continue to show up like that, if you continue to show up and authentically, I'm going to say powerfully in your own way. Powerfully doesn't mean loud or arrogant. Powerfully can mean quite quiet and insightful. If you continue to contribute in that way, people will see it. People will come back to you later and say, thank you for contributing that idea. I really appreciate how it took the conversation down a different path. Or people will see that you are consistently showing up and facilitating a bigger, better, more interesting way of looking at the topic. As I said, leave your ego at the door. Sometimes it's okay that somebody else gets the momentary acknowledgement for the idea. You can sit there and say, yeah, I contributed that. And it took a bit, and then it rose back to the surface. That's completely okay. I know it's a hard one to surrender to. And I've got to say, 10 years, 11 years in the public sector, one of the things that I am actually most proud of is a lot of the influence that I had was because I didn't get stuck on owning the credit every single time. The credit came back to me. And in fact, people will still say to me now, 5 years later, Kat, I'm so grateful for you for how you helped facilitate this. And I will kind of laugh and think, it's funny, at the time everybody else thought that it was somebody else's idea, but that's not true. They saw where the influence came. They just recognize that people are how they are. People do what they do. A couple of other resources that I want to leave you with on this one, because being heard in meetings is challenging. Meetings are fascinating environments, particularly in the corporate and in the public sector. So episode 48 of the Speaking with Confidence with Kat Matson podcast is the cost of meetings on the fly. I recorded it after I realized that I was spending my life in meetings and completely checking out and actually not asking myself, what's my contribution here? What's my outcome? How do I show up here? And if I'm not going to, why am I here? Like, I can go and do something else. So episode 48, the cost of meetings on the fly, and how to decide, even as you're walking into the meeting, what's my contribution? What's my outcome? Another one that I didn't get to touch on much in this conversation, but sometimes our messages, sometimes our opinions that we're conveying, and one of the reasons why we're often not being heard is because they're complex. And the tendency for many of us with complex messages is to take our poor listeners, take our poor colleagues through all of the ins and outs of that complexity. Yeah, no, don't do that. And so episode 31 talks about how do you cut through complex messages so that they can be understood by people who don't understand, say, the technical detail, or they don't need to know the background. So that's episode 31. And then finally, episode 41, how neat, episode 31 and episode 41. Episode 41 is how to get a meeting back on track, which, might I say, if you have been struggling to be heard in the meeting, facilitating getting a meeting back on track, even if you're not the chair, even if you're not the person who's technically running the meeting, that will have you be heard. If you can get a meeting back on track, that will have you be heard. So that is episode 41. Now, all of the links to all of those episodes are in the show notes. Whew, that was a bit. I hope it has given you some ideas. Agreement frames, let go of the need to be right, let go of the need for the credit, and just meet your audience where they're at. Okay. As I said at the top of this episode, this month, I'm hosting a speakeasy practice session all about your elevator pitch. Just come and join and practice your elevator pitch. Get some feedback, try a few things on for size and practice. One of the biggest issues that we have with our elevator pitches, can I just say, is that we don't actually get to use them out loud until we're in front of a live audience. And then we're in a pressure situation and we lose our words. By practicing our elevator pitches, you can still sound natural because they'll be familiar. They'll be familiar, and it won't be about a script. It'll instead be about the essence. So Thursday, May 22nd, 12:30 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. It's an online session. Just show up. Just show up. You do need to register first, though, and the link for that is in the show notes. How do you make yourself heard in meetings, or what struggles do you have when it comes to being heard? Let me know. Find me on Instagram. That's where I spend a fair bit of my time these days. Find me on Instagram at Kat Matson. That's Kat with a C. The link is in the show notes, of course. Or if you're listening or watching on Spotify, you can leave me a comment below and I'll reply. Just like Annie did the other week. Thank you so much, Annie, for leaving such a beautiful comment, just acknowledging it was on the episode where I was talking about how to show up even when you're not feeling it. And Annie just said thank you, because there are plenty of times when she has also not felt it. So find me on Instagram or leave a comment below. That's me done for another episode of Speaking with Confidence with Kat Matson. I hope you have enjoyed it. The fact that you're still listening at the very end tells me that you have, so yay. And next week I'm back with another episode. What are we talking about next week? Oh yeah, how to speak up even when you're scared. So that should be a good one. Until then, have fun, keep doing your thing, and here's to confidence and here's to impact. I'll see you soon.